This is a special edition of 17 News, Golden Empire Black History.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for this special edition of 17 News honoring Black history. I'm Moses Small. We begin tonight with the coronavirus pandemic. Here at home and across the nation, the virus hit certain communities harder than others, not only in case numbers, but hospitalizations and deaths. I sat down with health experts and Black Kern County residents to learn how to keep this community safe, and that journey starts with vaccines. Doctors say it's more important now than ever for Black Americans to take COVID-19 vaccines when they're eligible. The CDC says African Americans are dying from COVID-19 at nearly triple the rate of white Americans. But some say shadows of the past make it difficult to take the shot.
For me, it was a distress of what happens to us as a people, the Tuskegee experiments.
The Tuskegee experiments planted doubt in many communities of color nearly a century ago. The nation's public health service attempting to learn more about syphilis by recruiting Black Americans with the disease and secretly leaving them untreated for 40 years.
Well, my dad grew up during those times.
Experts say those fears don't line up with the facts of the coronavirus pandemic.
The Black community that has some inherent natural fears because of some of the things that happened in the history of the United States. How do we make sure that those folks know the power of this vaccine, that it's safe, it's coming from a trusted source, and that we're doing that to help people in this community?
But not everyone thinks coronavirus vaccines will be a disaster like the Tuskegee experiment. Colin says his father convinced him to take the COVID shot.
We're from Mississippi originally, and he knows discrimination much greater than me. So if he can trust, I can trust.
The world's top doctors say both available vaccines are well tested and safe. So far, millions of Americans have taken these shots with no evidence of widespread allergic reactions. Doctors can't defeat COVID-19 on their own.
If you have enough people vaccinated against the disease, you could eradicate it. We did that, with polio. For an older generation, they remember people being in iron lungs. And we have been able to eradicate that disease in the United States and around the world because of vaccination.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says this disease won't go away until nearly 90% of Americans take the shots. And when that happens, we can say farewell to the virus that has killed over 36,000 Black Americans. And as we've mentioned, African Americans suffer from some of the highest death rates from the coronavirus, but many say they won't get a vaccine. So this month, I hosted a town hall event and talked with health experts to separate the facts from the fiction.
So first and foremost, the vaccine does not interact with your DNA. An example I like to use is if you think of your cells as a chicken egg, right? You break it into a bowl, there's egg white, and then there's a separate yellow yolk that's completely contained and separate within the egg, correct? There's the nucleus of the cell where all of your DNA is held, is just like that yolk. It's completely separate, it's protected, and the mRNA vaccine never gets anywhere near it.
Several experts from Kern's Black community weighed in on the historical issues steering some communities of color away from the vaccine. And if you missed the town hall, you can catch it on our website, kget.com. And Mothers Against Gang Violence celebrated Black History Month in Bakersfield. 17's Perla Shaheen tells us more about how they're educating Black youth.
Children of color from all over Kern County gathered near Casa Loma School in East Bakersfield to celebrate Black history.
Kids are excited, it gives them something to look forward to because they're actually getting a chance to look at history, what's now, and what could be.
A handful of kids sang and danced to their favorite Black artists. Some took center stage to talk about the accomplishments of famous people of color, like Jackie Robinson, Jay-Z, and Kobe.
I'm Jackie Robinson, and I'm the first Black major and the first baseball player.
Children are angels, and if you can be a part of their world and make it better, that's the best thing that any human being can do.
What do we want? Hey! When do we want it? Now!
Mothers Against Gang Violence organized the event to bring awareness of the need for social and economic development in communities of color.
I hope to accomplish change every time I come out here and I could connect with our people and talk with our community and give these events. It's about change. It's about making change here in Greater Bakersfield. You know, this is our city. This is where we live, and I want us to live in peace.
Other organizations came to show their support, including the Buffalo Soldiers.
I come out here because when I was growing up in this neighborhood, people gave back to me and my brothers and sisters, and so I think it's only right that we replicate the things that happen to us and we give back to the community.
That was Pearl Shaheen reporting. Event organizers hope the younger generation will grow up appreciating our Black historical heroes. And a lot of planned events over the last year had to make adjustments because of the coronavirus pandemic, and this year's Black History Parade is no exception. Here's a look at last year's event. This year, the parade will be held virtually. The Kern County Black Chamber of Commerce is presenting an online video compiled from video submissions of local residents. The virtual parade's theme is Moving Onward in Unity. Organizers say it represents the pathway for even better opportunities to build a stronger and more effective village moving forward to the future. The video was released this morning, and you can watch it on the Kern County Black Chamber of Commerce Facebook page. And still to come, we're taking a look at Black history in our area through the lens of music.
We're living in a beautiful time, but gosh, there's so much growth to be made.
Up next, we talk with local artists of color and their connections to our community. Plus, a local man says music saved his life and allowed him to get off the streets. Don't go away. A local musician is putting his own spin on the Bakersfield sound, blending it with rhythm and blues. I sat down with him to talk about how music changed his life. Andre Hayes wants to make his mark on the Bakersfield sound, infusing country music with his own brand of R&B. 17 News caught up with him in December, before he had played any shows locally. He spent the last month performing songs from his debut album, Redemption.
What inspired the album was me going from homelessness from 2014 through about 2017, almost 2018, going from, nothing to something and fighting and clawing my way through.
Some songs drawing from the darkest parts of his life.
I wanna change your past, babe.
He says his experience on the streets was tough, but he wouldn't trade any of the lessons he's learned.
We all have a dream in life, and I've been pursuing mine for a very long time through heck and high water, to say the least. And it taught me how to survive on my own.
When he's not performing, he's selling merchandise or scribbling lyrics in his notebook. He says his children push him to work harder.
I have 3 beautiful babies that were left to me by my late child's mother. Every step I take, I'm not taking it for 1, I'm taking it for 3. And so my children are depending on me to be successful in every aspect of that word, and I don't want to fail them.
You can find Andre Hayes online at drehays.net. And meanwhile, some of the best country singers in the world have come out of our town. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll find a lot of jazz and soul music as well, passed down from the talented Black artists from Bakersfield. 17's Pearl Shaheen tells us more about their work.
There are a few popular artists that come to mind when thinking of the Black music scene in Bakersfield. One of them is 2-time Grammy Award-winning singer Gregory Porter. He spent his entire childhood in Bakersfield. His mother moved here from Louisiana when she was 14 to pick cotton.
She even took us out to the cotton fields to show us how to pick cotton. It wasn't a job that we could do when we were kids, but she just wanted to show us, this is what I used to do.
He says his mother brought Southern music with her and often sang those hymns in church.
There were great voices that I grew up with. I think of Pastor Richardson, who was a pastor here in Bakersfield. He sounded like Sam Cooke.
His childhood in Bakersfield was a crucial part in his development as an artist.
Some of the themes that I pull from church find their way into my music, and that's in a way that's what I'm most excited about. The idea that I've taken my childhood experiences, and I've put them into music.
Sit down and take a drink and fill your water tank.
Most of his music is centered around themes of resilience and revival.
In an environment that you may be thought of as less than, to take your talent and use it to show your beauty, to show your humanity, to show your grace, is something that I feel that in a way, music has been a gift for me.
He says the idea of overcoming racism is intertwined in his lyrics.
The idea of Black history is something in a way that you wear on you. And it's a pride that you carry with you. And it's something that I'm teaching my son.
Never cease my mind, never seem to find an explanation for time.
Crimson Sky is a local singer and songwriter who wants to use music to unite the Bakersfield community.
Black people have so many freedoms that they didn't have 100 years ago. So we're living in a beautiful time, but gosh, there's so much growth to be made.
She's organized peaceful sit-ins in support of gay pride and women's rights. The most recent was after the death of George Floyd.
And this was the one thing that I could do, and people needed it, and we could come together with music at the center, with love at the center, peace at the center of it. And that's really become a big part of who I am.
Crimson Sky also works closely with local radio host Danny Morrison to promote Black artists in Bakersfield.
Those of us that have grown up in the city of Bakersfield, Kern County as a whole as well, we understand that the Black community, as far as music is concerned, has been ignored for a long time.
Morrison says he sees a lot of underground talent that just needs a stage.
So I took it upon myself to say, you know what, we're going to put my town on, and all of these rappers and R&B artists and folk singers and spoken word artists, we're going to give them a time on the frequency. And local events that we do, I always bring them in and say, show Bakersfield what we are. And they've been doing a great job.
Perla Shaheen, 17 News.
A Central Valley fire chief is honoring Black history. Up next, how he set the stage for other people of color to follow in his footsteps. We're continuing our Honoring Black History series with a look at the Central Valley. Firefighters in Fresno said they didn't see people who looked like them in the department, and that pushed them to pursue a career as a firefighter. Anthony Bales files this report.
I was really wondered on, not sure how it's going to be accepted.
In 1978, Michael Smith broke the color barrier in the Monterey Fire Department as the first Black firefighter. It would become a familiar theme through Smith's career. In 1994, he was hired here in Fresno.
It was, very challenging, very rewarding. I really loved the job and the time that I spent in Fresno.
He credits the department's handling of a Lear jet crash in his first year that left many minds at ease about his ability to lead.
By us getting through that incident, I think as well as we did, helped to move us along as me as the fire chief and the rest of the department.
During the course of his 9-year career here in Fresno, Smith said he expanded the promotion system, weighing more than just a firefighter's test score.
What they did for the department, what they did within their respective communities, and just generally how they were all around as a person. I was able to bring on, I had several women, one of which is the current fire chief, Carrie Donis. I hired her as a firefighter.
It would turn out to be the unofficial passing of the baton.
He gave me a shot. He hired me as an entry-level firefighter.
As the city's first Black fire chief, brought in the person who 20 years later would become the city's first female chief.
I worked hard for the positions I promoted to.
And in 2014, Carrie Donis took the reins of the department.
We have done great things as a team, and I'm glad I can be a role model for young women in the profession.
A legacy she plans to sustain by continuing to attract the best and the brightest, even in the age of COVID.
Strong work ethic and a positive attitude. We are doing a recruitment in the spring that we can teach you to be a firefighter.
Donna says projects like the Final Five highlight the contribution of women in the department.
This is a viable profession. for you and your long-term goals, to include if you want to have a family and children and what have you. We still do that.
And who knows, in her next class could be the department's future chief in the making.
Boy, it'd be great to promote from within and see that happen.
And still to come, a Bakersfield man helps pave the way for black athletes. A look at the life of MLB ref Art Williams. Welcome back. You've heard of Jackie Robinson, the first black player in Major League Baseball, but there's another black sports pioneer you may not be as familiar with, and he's one of ours. 17's Robert Price introduces us to Art Williams.
In 1971, Major League Baseball had one African-American umpire, Emmett Ashford, who had worked in the American League since 1966. In 1972, starting on September 18th, it had two. That's the day Art Williams, born in Arkansas, raised in Bakersfield, took the big step from the AAA International League to the bigs. Art Williams' brother Audie was there that night in San Diego, and he remembers glimpsing the stadium message board just as the game was about to begin.
Welcome, Art Williams.
He hadn't set out to be an umpire. He started out a hard-throwing right-handed pitcher for the minor league Bakersfield Indians, but he was handled poorly by his coaches and permanently damaged his elbow. With wife Shirley's support, he attended Major League Baseball's Umpire Academy in St. Petersburg, Florida, where 200 applicants were vying for 30 jobs. Williams got one of them and took a pay cut.
He said, well, Art Jr., tell your dad he's going to be going to the Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, and congratulations on becoming the first black umpire in the National League.
It all came to an end for Williams after the 1977 season. In late 1978, he started having headaches and seizures. It turned out he had developed a tumor on his pituitary gland. He didn't survive the brain surgery. He was just 44.
Art Williams was good to baseball, even if baseball wasn't always necessarily good to Art Williams. You never would have known it, though, like those other black pioneers of baseball, Emmett Ashford, Larry Doby, Jackie Robinson. It wasn't about the struggles of race. Once they said play ball, it was about the integrity of the game. In Bakersfield, Robert Price.
The COVID-19 pandemic has been hard on small businesses. Up next, how one man is working tirelessly to keep a local dance studio up and running. And finally tonight, shining a spotlight on black people making a difference here in our community. Like Marvin Ramey, who owns Experience Dance Studio in downtown Bakersfield. Like many businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic, the studio has had a hard time staying afloat. So to help make ends meet, they held a COVID-safe Valentine's Day fundraiser. Dancers volunteered to sell cookies, cupcakes, cocoa, and coffee outside the dance studio on 18th Street. Plus, they sold costumes from past shows. Ramey says funds will help keep the doors open and cover expenses like rent and utilities. He says dance helps kids of all ages to be active and to express themselves.
It means a lot. I mean, it's a passion. It gives me, I guess, my release to give back and to show how much dancing is important to as an art. Arts are so important for kids.
The studio is also fundraising through GoFundMe. You can find a link to that on our website, kget.com, and just click the hot link. And thank you for joining us for this special edition of Honoring Black History. Join me next for 17 News at 5. That's right after the break.